Hi.
So welcome. Thank you for joining us for the sixth annual Imagine This Women's Film Festival. I'm Melissa Center. I am a fellow actor and filmmaker. And I screened a film that I made for this festival last year called His Name is Neve, about the kind of gray area that we as women encounter in terms of consent. And here we are. It's so nice to meet you.
I love that. Nice to meet you as
Yeah.
well.
So I really enjoyed your film. Why don't you, I'll have you just tell our audience, first of all, like introduce yourself and tell our audience what your film is and what it's about and, you know, why everyone should see it.
Amazing. So my name is Phoebe Dunn, and I'm an actor, producer, and writer. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. And I wrote and produced and was in the short film Red, which is in short film block 5. Here we are. Red is about in essence, it's about a first date. And it gets kind of steamy, but I wanted to take kind of what we think of when we think of the sort of BDSM power dynamics world out of the, so to speak, dark dungeon and put it into a more everyday setting, because ultimately I from my experiences, that's where these things occur. They don't always happen where we imagine them happening. They happen in coffee shops. They happen, you know, on the street at sort of like lunch and learns, you know, weird things like that. Because I think it's really important to learn how to have conversations about consent at any level in terms of your expression in the bedroom, so to speak. And I think that what this community does so well is that they really foster a educational environment about learning how to have these conversations. So Red kind of came out of that. I really felt that I hadn't seen on the screen a female-driven conversation surrounding power dynamics and consent in the sexual sphere. And I wanted to write that because I think that what I've encountered in this world, in this community, is a bunch of really badass ladies who are, you know, female identifying people saying what they want. And I think that's really empowering and exciting. And it gave me so much strength as an individual. So, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I've always, or I typically ask, you know, what is the source or inspiration for the story? It seems as if you are a member of this community. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's sort of like, it's so deep and expansive that I still feel almost like a new member to it, even though I would say it's like a 4-year journey in the making. And it's definitely something that I knew from a young age was a part of who I was. And what I think is so lovely about this film is it was sort of an expression of something that has been there, but there, you know, is a lot of shame surrounding it in our culture and in our world. And I think it was really powerful for me to step into that light. And what's lovely about it is that people who've seen it, if we see it live in a festival or just friends, they've come and communicated things to me about it in a positive way. And I think I was definitely worried about the flip side of that in many different facets. So yeah. But yes, I would still say almost newly exploring and kind of learning about it every day. But yeah.
That's really wonderful. And I love that you're using art to probably get to know that part of yourself deeper, right? And to kind of flip people's heads around in terms of the perception and the stigma around the BDSM community. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because I'm not a part of it, but I really appreciate, I've had friends who have been, and I appreciate always, like you're saying, the consciousnness around consent and communication that I feel like everybody should have. The film was really beautifully shot. It made me want to like join them in a coffee shop. I was like, where is that?
Oh yeah, no, that coffee shop. Well, when you come to New York, you can go to that coffee shop.
Where is it?
It's called Izzy Rose. It's in Clinton Hill. It's by the same a woman who owns Clementine Bakery, which is a very famous vegan bakery in Brooklyn. And they opened this location a couple of, maybe like only like 3 months before we decided we were going to film this, and we got in there right before they started being open during the day. And they were so generous with us. And as you say, it's a gorgeous location. And Olivia Booker, who is our director of photography, did an amazing job. And then Katya Koziara, who's the director. I just cannot say enough about how incredible this team was. But Katya really took a first-time filmmaker, producer, me, writer, and really gave me the strength and the confidence to keep going. And I almost approached her as like can you consult with me on this script? I just need some help. Like, what do I do? And then when she said she wanted to direct it after I asked her, I was absolutely blown away, because I just have so much respect for her. So yeah, she really was a huge part of making this possible, and she's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, I was particularly struck, and I think we have a fellow filmmaker joining us in just a second, but this block, I felt like, and I don't know if you've seen any of the films in the block,
I watched
but I felt like the visual storytelling was pretty consistently excellent across all the films. And I think a subject matter such as yours, or like, it can lean into a territory that gets like, I don't want to say anything that's going to offend anybody.
No, I mean, I would say it's like
a little like romance novel-y, you know what I'm saying? Like that can be a pitfall.
Oh yeah.
And I felt like what I saw was not that at all.
Oh, great.
I thought it was very honest. I thought it was like sexy and all the right, in a very authentic and grounded way. It felt like this is a female driven story. And also it felt like wonderfully grounded.
Great.
And I thought both of your performances were really excellent as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Ben's amazing. Ben
Brown. I was like, who is he?
Yeah, right.
It made me excited, being in a current LA artist, actor, filmmaker. It made me really excited to come back to New York, because I'm seeing work like yours, and I'm like, my people are there too.
Yeah, we're here.
Hi, Ree.
Yes, hi.
Hi, so nice to see you, and thank you for joining us.
Too.
So we were just talking about Phoebe's film Red, and I'll ask some more questions around that, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your film?
Okay, my name is Ray. I'm the director of the animated short, There You Are. And I come from backgrounds in the game industry. I started my career as a concept designer. And then in 2018, I came to University of Southern California to pursue my master's degree of animation and digital arts. And from here, I am obsessed with filmmaking. Actually, There You Are is my first 3D animated film.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you currently in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Got it. So we have New York and LA represented here on the call. So I'm curious what your inspiration was for this particular story. Is it a personal story? What really compelled you to make this?
Actually, the story is about unresolved grief. It tells about the main character, Sue. She feels estranged from her father after her mom died 5 years ago, but she tries to build a close relationship with her dad. And this story, I got this inspiration from one of my friends. Actually, she lost her father at a young age, and I witnessed how her bereavement influenced her mentally and behaviorally. So that drives me to make the story. And I want to tell people why we couldn't teach young people how to face it properly instead of skipping it. Because in my own experience, when my family members passed away, our adults usually avoid talking about the grieving process. They knew they want to protect young people from it. And the process is suffering and bittering. But for me, I feel like, I missed a lot in my life circle. Grief is not, we cannot skip it. So also that was also my another inspiration.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's interesting because both of your films, I think, deal with conversation topics that can tend to be pushed under the rug or that people want to avoid. And that's why filmmaking is so important and special, because it gives opportunities to people, for people that I think feel seen, have their experiences reflected in a way that like takes away shame. And you know, people can have a personal conversation with uncomfortable like feelings and topics, I think, with film in a way that is really special. I thought that and I was saying to Phoebe, really all of the films in this block, I think the visual storytelling is pretty outstanding. And it's, excuse me, my nose is dripping a little bit, so if I'm sniffling, I'm very impressed to hear that this was your first stab at making an animated film. It was visually beautiful, and the texture of it, I mean, it's so, you create an intimacy, and the environment is so tactile, you know, that I feel like I was right there in the story. I was really struck by that. So really excellent work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'm always curious, you know, if there were mishaps along the way in terms of production, or things that like threw a wrench into your process that then ultimately makes the film like a richer or better experience. If either of you want to share.
Maybe you can go first.
I was gonna say I've talked a lot, right? We were really lucky with production itself. We always joke, we kind of like put a hands in like 3 weeks before, once we got the team together, and we're like, we're gonna make this film, and we had a date, and everything went really smoothly all the way through kind of our wrap. I think we ran into a little bit of difficulty in post-production, just some like people dropping off and not being as responsive as we would have liked. And, you know, just like sometimes it just starts to get drawn out. There was never a major like, oh no moment, but yeah. And then we were working on the score with the wonderful Nathan Prilliman, who is a friend of mine. He did the score for the film, and then COVID happened, and he teaches, and all of a sudden he was like, I have to change everything to virtual. So that pushed us back a little bit, but ultimately we kind of were just taking our time with post, but yeah, there wasn't any major mishaps. I will say we had like a lovely happy accident within the editing process with some of the moments where there's talking over slow motion visuals. That sort of was an accident in edit, and everybody loved it. And so that kind of is how that weaseled its way into the film. And I think that was definitely like a happy accident, not out of a problem, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Will you briefly introduce yourself and your film, and then I'll repeat the question and you can hop on after we shares her answer.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for my lateness. I am Genoa Zarate from Mexico City. I wrote, directed, and produced the short doc, They Will Not Silence Our Voices. And well, briefly, it's about women. The film is about women, specifically female journalists in Mexico. And we try to show and make visible the multiple violence that they face when they have to report in the newsrooms, with the sources, in the environments that they have, because Mexico, unfortunately, we have the highest rates of murders and disappearances of journalists. So it's a very hostile country for journalists and freedom of expression. And at the same time, we are also, fortunately, a country with a high rate of femicides. According to the statistics, is 11 women a day that they are assassinated. So with these two factors, the hostility towards the press and the femicide country, the misogyny country that we have, we try to see how female journalists work under these circumstances. So we interview journalists from all over the country and try to not have a documentary just about Mexico City because we are a bubble, the capital. And so we try to go to Veracruz, to the north of Veracruz is near Mexico City, Tijuana in Baja California, Chihuahua, in several different states in Mexico. And yeah, so that's why I can say briefly, I have to say, I admire so much your work as a filmmakers and writers and producers. I am an academic as what I do. And this is the first time I do a short doc. And I have to say, it's amazing what you do. You know, I honestly, I never imagined to go beyond articles, papers, and books. And this is a way to disseminate our work and to reach different audiences that will never read what I write in Spanish and very sometimes I don't even understand myself. So yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing and congratulations to you. That's incredible that this is your first film project. I mean, and what an important topic. And I mean, I found it extremely compelling and obviously very disturbing, but like very important work. So thank you so much. I'll ask you some more specific questions, but we were just discussing in terms of along the way, you know, sometimes, I mean, probably every time we go into production, there's something that happens that can be perceived as an accident or maybe something negative or an obstacle that oftentimes ends up really elevating the film. So Phoebe just shared an anecdote of something in the editing room that kind of surprised everyone. Rui, was there anything in that process that happened along those lines for you?
Actually, I think making animation makes things much easier because you don't need to go out to do the film shooting. And what we need to do, just sitting down in front of a computer, so we can complete from the storyboard to previs and the animation rendering to final post-production. And as we now also worked from home, so we talked to my team members through Zoom. So I think I don't have much problems when I worked on this project, and it's more manageable. Yeah, I'm so lucky. Yeah, and yeah. Oh, but by the way, I'm sorry, I need to hop off because I have a work meeting now. But it's very nice to meet all of you, and it's my honor to be a part of the Imagine This Women's Film Festival this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining. Wonderful work, and look forward to seeing more from you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
So Yenaway, what about you? I'm sure you're, I mean, the project itself feels like it was a risk to undertake. Was there anything that, you know, happened along the making of the story that rattled the situation or that ultimately, you know, shifted the project for better?
Yes. I have to tell you an anecdote because this short doc is a product of it was an invitation by an international congress on the safety of journalists that is every year we go to Norway to present our research, but because it was a pandemic year last year, they decided to invite 7 or 8 researchers all around the world to do a documentary. And I have to say, when I received the email, it was June and the Congress is in November. In my square mind, I said, how on earth am I going to do a documentary? I don't do that. No, why are they asking me? No, they allocated the travel money to documentaries, and I ignored the email for several months until I was changing jobs. And then I say, okay, all right, let's do it. And so I embarked into this. I invited to a former student, journalism student. He's a documentarist now. So we have the challenge that we were filming in the middle of a pandemic. So everybody was in lockdown. So we couldn't, even the journalists in Mexico City, we couldn't go to their houses or to their streets to film them. So we had to do interviews via Zoom, which is not ideal, but this is what we could get.
Apologies if you hear my dog Scout barking at the probably FedEx truck.
And they pick the perfect moment.
And I'm trying to be. Oh, here we go. Here's her toy. I can distract her. Okay.
So long story short, we had like an audio issue because we recorded the interviews via Zoom, and sometimes it was not ideal, the internet connection and several other issues. And the other challenge was that I tried to write in academic form to the documentary language, and my former student, he told me, "What are you trying to say?" And I was trying to say, "Well, I'm trying to explain this city in the Mexican state, Nezahualcóyotl, which has a high rate of femicide and all the issues that they have, that they surround this city." And he was like, "Why don't you just say that?" No. I was like, all right, okay. So I was in my mind, I was trying to do all these, complicated things. And he was like, just say that, no, just simply. And he always reminded me and he was very important for me because we were in a way of teacher student, and I was learning a lot from him. And he was also learning all about the journalist and femicide. And so he always reminded me to just go simple and to translate into narrative on audiovisual language. And I think that those were the main challenges that, and afterwards we were having fun because when I told him the documentary, he told me that's kind of like a touristic documentary and that's not quite, where we're going to go. And then when he told me his first ideas about female and journalists, he told me, I want to shoot flowers and etc., very feminine. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So we were, like all the time discussing, like, remember when we wanted to do a documentary on touristy and with flowers as female? I would laugh a lot.
Yeah, this is like a different experience. Yeah, that's so. What you said, keep it simple. What is that? Like KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? That thing that I actually think both of your films, I mean, is at the core of both of your films. Phoebe, your film is, I mean, very just simple in the best way. Like it just feels like it expresses its essence. Mm-hmm. And both of you, this is your first film, correct?
Yeah.
So that's a huge accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then Phoebe, you also wrote this, correct?
I did. Yes. Yeah.
And you leaned on, you mentioned in our initial conversation that you leaned on your director, I believe, in terms of like writing feedback. Was there, was there other support that you received to craft the, mm-hmm.
I mean, not so much Katya was very much about, really helped shape the writing. Ben also was a part of the writing process from the beginning. I wrote it with us both in mind and then sent it to him, and we would have rehearsals, and like the first line came from a rehearsal that we did, and we said, that's how we should start it. And then Katya came in and helped with a lot of the, some of the more technical elements that when you write a screenplay for the first time, you don't know. And,
mm-hmm.
The wonderful thing about shorts is I think they do have it has a bit of a wider scope of like what you can do and how you can play with that structure. So Ben was huge in that part as well. And then, Stuart Rustin, who was our producer, who was literally an angel. I'd never produced anything of this scale before, and asking people to come on board to help me was a whole new experience. It's different when you're asking on behalf of somebody else, but when it's for you, I think it just feels like there's so much more at stake, obviously. So Stu, who has a lot of experience in the industry and also in the short film and feature film, he just made a wonderful documentary that's in the festival circuit right now, but he was very much helpful with the production side of it. And like, I was like, who do we hire? Like, what do we need? And he brought Olivia on, and then Olivia brought her team. So I just learned so much about like how important building your network is. And now, having produced several things since, I just have a big old list of like all the different people, and just like really building that, and always keeping those people close and is so important as a producer. So yeah, I couldn't have done this without any of them. And I think I was just the person driving it forward in the center, but it was really wonderful to see all these people come out and support me, because I feel like you just don't expect that. You think, oh, it's going to be hard. And then all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork and you're like, you all want to do this with me. That's amazing. So yeah.
It is cool. Yeah. And anyway, given this is your first film foray, did it open you up to like a new community of people that you're going to continue to collaborate with?
Yes. Well, for one, the documentary is Miguel J. Crespo. That is my former journalism student. And also the photographers that did like the drones and they managed to capture beautiful images from Mexico City and Chihuahua. And also, as Phoebe was saying, I discover new people that are in the industry, but since we are in different kind of jobs, I've never considered. But I have friends, I have a friend producer from Guatemala, Pamela Guinea, and she has collaborated. She has produced several films. And she was my consultant, my production consultant, and she's my very good friend, but I had no idea about the prices and how much should I pay for several things. So she helped me a lot, and I really appreciate all this job, and also their female photojournalists that gave me her pictures, to her photos to put in the documentary, and she donated them because they wanted to be shown. So I really admire these photojournalists that are very good. And so yes, I wanted to have a female team, but I couldn't, because I couldn't push myself to that, because it was my first time. So I had to work with the people that I knew and I liked, basically. But yeah, in terms of music, we had Gabriella Bolton, that is a Guatemalan rapper, and she also gave us her song, which is I think is a beautiful song, because it says what we are trying to say about the journalists and the women, because also another story is to show the feminist protests in Mexico that had happened in the last 3 years, that are very creative and interesting, and several women we are in the streets protesting because of the high rates of femicides and the violence towards women. So in this with this story, her music was very important and motivated me to see the film in a different light. So yeah, this I think is a collaborative work, and I'm so glad to know all these kind of professional women, that are doing different kind of jobs that when you're doing a film, a documentary, are very important. So yes, I'm looking forward to work with them again, definitely.
I'm curious, the journalists who are subjects in your film, I mean, is it just a kind of accepted understanding that their lives are at risk all the time? Is being in your film an extra risk for them? Is that just something that they believe so strongly in, the sanctity of truth, that they're just willing to take that risk on a daily basis? Can you speak more to that?
Yes, of course. That's a very good question. Sorry, my dog now is it's her turn.
They know.
Yeah, well, these journalists that I show are a small percentage of all the journalists that I have interviewed for my research. So I just pick from different states to have like a representative sample in the documentary, but they are also key journalists that I wanted to show. So the first one is Patricia Mayorga. She's from Chihuahua, and she suffered displacement over the last years, and she lived abroad, Mexico, and she just returned. So so obviously I couldn't see her because of the pandemic, but she couldn't tell us where in Mexico she is living at the moment because it's protected, no? And we took care of that, of her, and also Violeta Santiago, the journalist from Veracruz. We couldn't say where she is at right now because she flew Veracruz, and but they know that their stories are shown, but at the same time, in this research, interesting thing that I found is that it's the first time that an academic or somebody asked them about the harassment and the violence that they suffer, and some of them they didn't wanted me to tell because it's very strong issues that they are facing, of course, but some of them they wanted to tell their stories because they feel that it was important for them to tell them. So other female journalists that are maybe younger or there might be suffering the same violence, they understand that they are not the only ones, no? Like a way to reach out to them. So they know, and they believe that it's important, no? I know there are some issues that are very very harrowing for them to tell and for us to watch, no? Some of them were my former students, so I suffered double, no? As a researcher and as a former teacher, because two of them were my students several years ago. So so they know that their stories are going to be heard, but at the same time they know that it's important that that the people listen to this. And I have to say, 3 years ago, that when I started this research, I faced misogyny in the academic world and in the journalistic world, because they constantly asked me why I was only researching women. They sometimes ask doubt about my objectivity as a researcher and my professionalism and etc. because I was only looking at women. Why, no? And I say, why not? No, we need to see women, and we need to be civilized female journalists, because they are not the same as their male counterparts. And now that with the feminist movement in Mexico City and all around the world, Mexico in general, and all around the world is blooming. Now they see and they say, and I see them in the academic forums, of course, the women journalists. And I say, okay, all right, that's good that they have changed their minds, but it was, for me, it was important. It was important because I'm a feminist and I had to visualize that, no? So I didn't stop, but I faced a lot of I don't know, reprimands, a lot of questioning of why, no? And yeah, but I didn't stop. It didn't stop me.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about just the role that men play in our worlds traditionally in society. I'm thinking a lot about how conversations, at least here in America, have started to shift. You know, Phoebe, in your film, your co-star, I think, embodies a male who is very vulnerable and kind of the epitome of what we as women would want in terms of being held, in terms of being able to listen, in terms of non-judgment. So yeah, there's such a stark contrast, I think, between the male subjects in both of your films, which is very interesting. Phoebe, and his name is Ben, forgive me, correct?
Ben, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, it seems, so first of all, your chemistry is really intact. I'm sure you already had a relationship with him.
Yeah, we've worked together several times before. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was curious how that kind of came to be, in like, the language that you created together in telling this story, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, we met in a class and we started doing scene work together, and kind of instantaneously like realized that we could grow together as we worked together, and that we were very open with each other right off the bat. So when I sort of said I wanted to write something, we kind of were like, well, what is it going to be? And we thought about writing something together. And ultimately I went away for 2 weeks and was on a farm in Western Massachusetts doing a wonderful program as an actor called Double Edge Theater Company. They do outdoor immersive experiences. They're wonderful. But and I said, well, during my downtime, I'm just going to like free write in my notebook, and maybe I want a short film to come out of these 2 weeks. And so, yeah, I think what Ben afforded me was a place of stability and safety to write whatever I felt wanted to come out of me. And we kind of both knew it was going to be around the subject matter. And I definitely wanted to write. It's funny because Ben is both like his character, and also when you first meet him, maybe not. So yeah, he was an interesting choice for this role. But I already, I wanted to write a scene where the guy was a little bit off balance and not as not as ready for the conversation. So I think he executed that beautifully, knowing that it maybe isn't necessarily where he lives as an actor or as a human being. He's very, very confident, very assertive. So it was really wonderful to have kind of watch both of us find these roles for ourselves and do these sort of intimate rehearsals with each other to not only develop the script, but develop the connection, which I think you spoke to, that you can see on screen. So yeah.
Fun. So we only have a few more minutes. I'm curious if you can both share what's next for this film and maybe what's next just beyond this exact film. Whoever would like to begin.
I can start. Where we are in the festival season, so we're trying to show the short doc overseas as much as we can. I have this idea that if people from all over the world can know these journalists, they can perhaps care or maybe just know what is happening in the country. I'm sorry. And so we are in this in the festivals, and we are presenting also the short doc in Mexico, in universities and in several other parts. And what's next? We would like to do a full documentary, actually, but now we try to we'll have to fundraise to do a full length documentary, and that's our the second part now of this project that hopefully we will get to do it anytime soon. And I know that I'm just an academic, but I'm honestly dreaming to become like you, documentarist, writer, and if I can, I think it's amazing what you do. I respect it so much. I feel so honored, to be honest, to be among you, and to learn a lot about you. And I hope I can mix academic research with documentary, and why not? Hopefully I can.
Well, you're already doing it, so there you go. Just keep on keeping on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Phoebe?
Yeah, I think you can claim your
Yeah,
filmmaker title for sure. Academic slash filmmaker, and they definitely go hand in hand. So we're also in the festival circuit. It's been a long season, it feels like, because we sort of got into one right off the bat almost as soon as the film was finished, and then we had a long gap where we didn't hear anything, and then we're suddenly getting a whole flurry of responses. So we have a few more coming up, and we just had a couple. So I saw it in person on the big screen for the first time, which was so exciting to hear everyone's reactions, and I loved it. And then and what's next for me personally is I'm continuing to produce mostly short projects. Since last summer, when I kind of pointed my focus a bit more towards producing, I've done like 8 or 9 projects in the short form, from like music videos to mostly short films. And I've written one other piece that's in this vein that I would love to film, which is another short. And I'm sort of like beginning the process of learning what it means to write a feature and trying to teach that to myself, and really focus on structure, because it's definitely something that I know so little about. So yeah, and then acting along the way. So yeah.
Cool. We are very kindred.
Yes.
You and I.
Yes.
Very kindred.
Right.
Awesome. It's such a delight, an absolute delight, not only to just watch your work, but get to know you.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about both of you, what you're up to. I think you have strong points of view and important things to say in the world. And it's so refreshing to just have this opportunity, really. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you and see your work as well. It's just stunning. So yeah.
It's lovely. No, it's lovely to meet you too, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see your